Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, welcome to another Lemon Amiga game guide and review. This time we'll be taking a look at Silkworm, a side-scrolling horizontal shoot-'em-up, which is a combination, to my mind, of army moves and perhaps a combination of Airwolf 2, maybe, from the Commodore 64. And Silkworm was originally developed for the arcades in '88 by Tecmo, and it was then subsequently converted in 1989 to a rake of different machines, started with the Amiga and the ST, the ZX Spectrum, the Commodore 64, the CPC, and there was also a NES version as well, which isn't quite as good as you would have expected, but you can certainly see the programmers of the 64K version has managed to cram a lot in there, maybe missing hills and foreground is the only exception. Pretty faithful, and the ZX Spectrum is a mere sketch of the idea. The concept is there, I suppose you can say, and I've certainly played the Commodore 64 version and the Amiga version, and I still consider the Amiga version to be the best, with the best graphics and the most features out of all of these conversions. So let's get rid of those and concentrate on that one. The Amiga version was programmed by the Random Access team, headed up by Ronald Pickett-Wieserich, and his first game on the Amiga, Silkworm. So let's jump into it and see what we made of it. So the aim of Silkworm is to fly or drive across the landscape, taking out everything in your way, including missiles, gun bases, and helicopters and planes and everything else that you can imagine. And as you can see, it's not particularly easy to do that. The gun that you start off with is particularly weedy. You can see I'm holding down the fire button for quite a minimal auto fire. If I should hammer that fire button, that will increase the rate of firepower. And what I'm trying to do is to destroy all these targets as quickly as possible, and that counts down the bonus counter at the bottom, you can see there. And when that reaches 0, that will trigger off the bonus vehicle, which is a goose, and by destroying the head of that thing before it attaches to the body, we can collect 2 bonus items. The first bonus item is always a double gun power-up, and the second bonus item is a rapid fire, and that will also speed up your vehicle as well. So here you can see I've switched on the joystick's auto fire, and that really does make a difference, even with the rapid fire that you get with the rapid shoot that you picked up. And if I switch off that auto fire now, I'll play with normal for the rest of this game. The in-game auto fire, once you pick that up, is great, and it's certainly powerful enough if you keep hold of that. If you happen to die, you will lose all your upgrades, your auto fire and your extra missile, so that's not very good, and it's best to keep hold of those by not dying. And also, if you don't die, you'll gain a bonus at the end of the level, so it's good to keep hold of that. And here we are at the end of the level. I haven't died. You can see I've picked up various shields there to keep me alive, and we'll certainly be seeing more of that action later on. The first boss is a helicopter, and some of these missiles can be blown up and some can't, and that's the first level completed. You get 10,000 points if you don't die, and I didn't. Let's just have a look at the arcade version to compare those graphics. And apart from, well, the hills are different there, but the majority of the background graphics are the same, and the layout of the enemy patterns as well, for the majority, is the same. Some of the airborne enemies drop from the top of the screen at random, but they are random. The rest are preset attack patterns, and once you've memorized those, it's easy. All you need to do is to rely on muscle memory and your hand-eye coordination to avoid those tiny little missiles that get in your way. So here we go, this is another goose, and if I head towards the head of that thing, that will give me 2 icons. These happen to be rank markers, and the side effect of collecting those is that we gain a 5-second shield. If we collect those individually, we'll gain 5 seconds, or if we collect both together, that will be doubled to a 10-second shield, and that's just an extra shield to deal with all these enemies, so sometimes that can come in very handy indeed. Other things you might notice on the screen, sometimes we'll gain a shield at the bottom of the screen which appears looks like a red button, or you can see one there. I've just collected it, just flying in the sky. This is a shield crystal, and if you shoot that often enough, that will explode and act as a smart bomb. And here we go, this is the end of level 2 boss, and as you can see, it's only the small missiles yet again that we need to avoid, and get closer to his gun turret, and away he goes. And 20,000 points there because I've survived 2 levels. That will keep on adding as long as we don't die. Compare those arcade graphics, and even though I've squashed the screen a little bit so that I can see the Amiga version, you can see the attack waves more or less similar. So let's carry on with the game. As I say, these enemies that drop down are random, and there were pretty few there. And again, the buttons on the floor, if you blow up those shields, that lights as a smart bomb, and that's always handy, particularly if you pick up the first one, that acts as your shield, and then if you ram another one, that will blow up, and that will also give you the score for blowing everything up on the screen, which saves you killing everything, so that's great. And as you can see, I've run out of shields, so I'm using those tokens there to give you that temporary shield. And ordinarily I'd have to avoid these missiles, but because I had a shield there, I survived. That's pretty difficult to get by that situation under normal circumstances, and it's just one of those aspects of the game. Sometimes the levels are easier in sections and harder in others. There are certainly danger areas, so what I like to do is to collect the shield the last possible moment before it goes off the screen, and that will leave the shield on for as long as possible. And again, collect the shield the last thing before the goose appears, so that you can have the shield to take that thing out. And ordinarily, you saw I left the shield on the floor. If you blow up those 2 shields and use the other one as a smart bomb, you can get rid of that other missile launching thing, but I didn't. So here we go, end of level 3 boss, dispatch, just like that. 31,000 points in the bag. That's what I like to see, a nice tick-tock counter ticking down. And on to wave 4, you can see the waves at the bottom of the screen. That basically means level, so this is level 4, and the green counter is ticking down again to get that goose. And it is worth getting that goose, because if you pick up 15 rank markers, that will mean your extra speed and your extra bullets don't disappear if you happen to die, and I certainly will be dying in this playthrough, so let's just get rid of those arcade graphics. Yes, the goose is appearing, so let's wade on in there, head to the top of the screen and follow it down. That's what I like to do, and that shield certainly comes in handy for these guys. And the screen really does get busy there with those helicopters in the background. You can't shoot those, they herald attack waves further on, and you will see the large craft in the background heralds that appearance a little later on. And no, you can't shoot it, but you must shoot those helicopters at the top, because they drop bombs like a carpet bomb effect, and that's yet another one of those hazardous spots on this level. If you get rid of those straight away, then you've survived it. So let's get that shield before we move on to the next enemy, and this enemy will lift the screen with tiny helicopters like trash, so it's best to get in there, destroy those before it even attempts to do that. And we can knock those out for some more points. And so, end of level 4 boss. These levels really do move quickly, and it's the same old boss. This time it takes a few more hits to kill him. Maybe 35 hits, something like that, 40 hits, and then he's away. And you can't speed that. Tick tock, tick tock. You can't speed that up, I'm afraid. But on to the next level. And it starts off with enemies as soon as you start the level. So you have to be on your guard. And look at these enemies. Sometimes it's possible to squeeze in between these guys and take them on. If you can't, you're going to die. Like this. There's just no way around it. Those enemies appear at random. And like I say, if you can squeeze between them, you're fine. If you don't, you die. And it's those little missiles again. You can see me waggling the joystick around in a circle to get rid of some enemies. And because I'm down to single firepower, that waggling around in a circle gives me just that little bit more spread on the screen. And look at this, enemies dropping and the goose. I've got to get this. And I went in for the headshot for the double and I got killed. And this is certainly not an appropriate time because I'm heading towards a wall. Let's get rid of this quickly, get the twin, and that should just enable us to get through the wall and those enemies. Tight spot if you haven't got the upgrades, and there are certainly no bugs apart from the random drop downs which sometimes can't avoid. But the playability, the jumping playability, the handling of the craft is absolutely flawless. And let's have another look at the arcade. And apart from the sky being a ridiculously dark blue there in the arcade, the columns are there and the background hills. Yes, I have squashed it so I can see the Amiga version, but yes, it's quite faithful. One of the most arcade perfect games, I suppose you could say, on the Amiga. Not quite arcade perfect, as we shall see later on. The graphics in this game were coded by Ned Langham, who went on to create the graphics for Narc, Double Dragon 3, and the top-down driving game In the Heat, which we reviewed earlier on. So I think he's done a pretty good job. And the bonus there, not much bonus because we died on the previous level. So on the downside, there are only 11 levels to this game, and it will only take you maybe 20 minutes to complete the thing end to end. And the 11th level is an interior level with a big machine boss at the end, which takes you quite some time to knock out. Those rockets I'm blowing up there from the floor, you might notice they increase the bonus goose counter, shall we say. That increases that by 2 points instead of the 1 that you usually get by blowing up enemies. And if you blow up the missiles, that will increase the goose counter by a percentage, a fraction, raising it by maybe 10% if you manage to get the missiles and scoop up the extra score. And incidentally, Ron Pickett-Weiser, the coder in this game, went on to code St. Dragon, Swiv, of course, Rodland, and surprisingly Mercenaries 1 and 2 on the next generation machines, starting with Mercenaries in 2005 for the Xbox. And the coder has certainly done a great job on the very fluid and playable game mechanics in this game. So I'd certainly give this a higher rating. And sometimes there is a save place on the bottom of the screen, and let's get in that save corner again. For all these missiles, you really can rack up score on these things as long as you kind of know the formula really to get around these enemy formations. And here we go, end of level boss. Let's compare the boss on the arcades. Apart from the island in the background, which looks more like a ramp, the graphics are spot on, and the enemy glows blue there, it looks like, on the arcade. And I survived that level. If I'd have survived that previous level, I'd have been on 50,000 bonus by now, but that's certainly how you get the high scores. You really must survive until maybe this wave, level 7, and if you survive all the way up here, then you should be on a great score by now. And if you don't, and it's perfectly possible to survive. I only died the once, stupidly, but it's perfectly possible to survive up to this level. But this level is quite a bit more difficult if you don't watch out. And you can see me leaving those tokens there so I can collect those at the last possible moment, and unbelievably lucky there to avoid those missiles. And which do you choose here? You've got a barrage coming from the floor and a barrage coming from the sky. You've got to take out the sky, otherwise you're dead, and then return to the floor. Unbelievably lucky again to miss all these things, and sometimes you can be in this game lucky and unlucky, and you will see both in this playthrough. Get the shield at the last possible moment, and if you are lucky you'll get a goose, and that gives you another couple of shields to take out these guys just like they appear in the arcade, apart from those robot things don't jump up and down like they do in the arcade version. But in general they've done a tremendous job with this game. The graphics, the sound is really meaty sound effects there. Barry Leach, who went on to do Back to the Future, DNA Warrior, Harley Quinn, Supercars 2, Switchblade 2, Sleepwalker. Tremendous sound there, and the gameplay, the playability is superb. The overall production values you can feel all the way through. The playability, you never seem to die unfairly in this game, and the game does give you a little element of luck as well if you seem to be in trouble. So everything about this game deserves the high score, and looking at the scores, Zap gave this 92% in May 1989, C Amiga gave it 94%, CMVG gave it 87%, Amiga Format gave it 86%, Your Amiga gave it 81%, and Amiga Joker only gave this 70%, complaining that it wasn't R-Type. Well, it certainly isn't R-Type. What it is a very, very playable game, even after all this time, and I'd certainly recommend Silkworm to anybody. So, thank you yet again for viewing my short review, and maybe I'll see you again when we get to review Macropol's F1 GP a little later on. So until then, cheers for now.